Welcome to the Success Sculpting Show with Stephen Pierce, bringing you the right information right now to sculpt a more meaningful and memorable life of success. Join us each week to discover gems to help you grow your mental toughness, expand your will to win, and multiply your results. It's never been easier to learn what to do and how to do it to succeed at what you choose to do. This is truly an experience you won't find anywhere else. Now, here's your host, the success sculptor himself, Stephen Pierce.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Success Sculpting Show, and I am your host, Stephen Pierce. And today, we are going to be talking about mind viruses, the 7 deadly venoms of the mind. Right now, to kind of get started with this, understand that in life, what you're looking at is not really what it is you see. I want you to think about that. What you're looking at is not really what you see. And also, what's happening is not what you're experiencing. We're going to break this down, okay? And the reason why is because life, our own individual lives, always come back to our own individual perspectives, our mental view. And our mental view kind of comes from one of three different places. There is a past orientation, there's a present orientation, meaning today, the here and the now, and then there's a future orientation. And the way we go to the past and the way we go into the future is we travel down these roads called memory and imagination. You use your memory as you're going to your past, and you use your imagination as you're going into the future. And we collect all this information and we use it and we process it in our present moment to make the decisions on how we're going to move our life forward. Now, the reason your perspective is important, though, is because the perspective that you have about everything, that's the lens and that's the filter through which you view the entire world. You interpret everything through your own filter. Right. That's why what you're looking at is not really what it is you see. You could be looking at something, but what you see is going to be determined by how you're processing and filtering everything through your perspective. The same thing with your life experience. There's a lot of things that happen in your life, but you experience those happenings based on how you're filtering and processing everything through what? Through your perspective, right? Now, going back to the point about your memory and your imagination, let me just make a quick point on that. A lot of people get lost in the past with their memories, right? And they do that by using their memories, and then they have all these different regrets based on all the different things they remember. And then people can kind of get lost in the future by using their imagination, doing a whole bunch of daydreaming. Right, just daydreaming, just lost in daydreaming. But don't get me wrong. Having dreams and visions is not a problem. That's not what I'm talking about. To me, a visionary, a person with a vision, has a plan. So I know this is a vision because you have a plan attached to it. But a daydreamer has a wish. They wish something would happen. They don't have a plan. They just wish that this would happen. They wish that would happen. So they're daydreaming about all these different things that they wish would happen, but they don't have a plan to go and execute as at least a starting point to manifest whatever that thing is. Okay, so we have to understand, man, in this particular moment, where am I constantly living? Am I escaping by going into the future and daydreaming? Or am I leaving the present moment and drifting to my past? And unfortunately for many of us, and I know I've done it a lot in my life, we go to the past and we have a whole bunch of regrets, and that's wasted energy, it's wasted time, because there's nothing we can do about the past, right? We can't go to the past and change anything. So we don't want to let the past be a straitjacket, which restricts us from doing better things today to create a better tomorrow. We don't want to use the past as a battering ram or as a bat and constantly club ourselves over the head with it, or even club somebody else over the head with it. You know, we can learn from it. We can extract lessons from it. That's the best thing to do, and then move forward to not repeat those things that we didn't like that happened, and also extract some of the wins that kind of confirm for you and reaffirm that, hey, you know what, I am strong enough, I am good enough, I am smart enough, and I can handle what's in front of me right now, and I can handle what comes next. So the thing is we want to know where we kind of living in the moment. But let's go back to this whole perspective thing, right? Your personal perspective, right? Because look at it like this. You could be looking at an opportunity, right? And you can either see it as a possible business success or a possible business failure, right? Two people can be looking at the same opportunity, right? But guess what? It's going to result in two different things. One person can look at it and they're going to be seeing how they're going to lose and how it won't work and how it can't work, while the exact other person can be seeing the same thing. And guess what? They could be seeing how it will work. They could be seeing how, man, this is my chance to win. The difference isn't what they are all looking at. The difference is in what they see via their own personal perspective. Now, why am I telling you this? Because the 7 deadly venoms of the mind actually come through our perspectives. They come through our perspectives. So let me ask you this question before we get into those 7. What is your current perspective on your chances to achieve whatever your dreams, goals, and ambitions are? Because remember, it's not what you see, it's how you see it. What are your current perspectives? Can you, can't you? Are you good enough, not good enough, smart enough, not smart enough, possible, impossible? What are your perspectives? And then I want you to ask yourself, whatever that perspective is, and here's the thing, you want to be honest with yourself, but whatever that perspective is, I want you to ask the question, how did I develop that perspective? Where did it come from? Am I borrowing somebody else's perspective? Because a lot of us, when we go through our life feeling quote unquote helpless, it's learned helplessness. Somehow we find ourselves in this position where we overindulge in codependency, right? Where we depend so much on other people that we tend to feel helpless if we don't have them, we don't have their approval, we don't have their social acceptance, we don't have their opinions and all these different things. Now, don't get me wrong, codependency is needed to a certain extent, all right? Because if you run a business, hey, this whole idea of being what's it called, financially independent, right? Self-made. Look, man, it's nice words, but it's tricky because I want you to think about this. How in the world is anyone financially independent in a world where everything is financially codependent on virtually everything else? So you can have a job and say, hey, I want to go start a business so I can be financially independent. Well, what does that mean? Because if you go start a business, you will be financially dependent on customers, clients, or patients, right? Oh, let's just say, hey, I don't depend on anybody. I sit behind my computer and I trade stocks or futures all day long. So it's just me. No, it's not. Somebody has to take the opposite side of the deal. Right? Even with high frequency trading, there's always something or someone else involved in your independence. Right? So, and I'm saying that to say that, look, I get the idea and the concept of being financially independent. But if you overindulge in the financial independence, you can end up treating people badly because you don't think you need them. And we all have a certain level of codependency. But then on the other end of the spectrum, if you feel as if, oh my gosh, I can't do it without anyone, or I can't do it without this particular person. Because here's the thing, let me say this. You will need certain people. You don't need everybody. You need the right ones. The wrong ones will just do you in. Trust me, been there, done that. The wrong ones. And by the way, we have to develop a certain level of discernment with people because the wrong ones don't all the time show up labeled the wrong ones. And sometimes you don't find out they're the wrong ones until everything has gone wrong. Right? Okay, so what is your current perspective on your chances to achieve whatever your goals and dreams and ambitions are, whatever that thing is, or those things are that you want to achieve? What is your perspective? Notice, I want to know your perspective. I don't care what anybody else thinks. Unless what they think is impacting your perspective, then that's something that has to be addressed. And then when you are honest with yourself and you say, hey, you know what, truly, this is my perspective on what's possible for my life or what I can achieve and if I can achieve it. And by the way, whatever goal you set for yourself, big or small, that's all relative, but who taught you to set a goal of that size, small or big or whatever, right? Where are we getting that stuff from? And that's what the second question comes down to. How did you develop that perspective? Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to look at those 7 deadly venoms. And actually these venoms are, by the way, what is a venom? Like if we got rattlesnakes out here in Texas, if you get bit by a rattlesnake, and there's copperheads out here, right? If you get bit by a rattlesnake or a copperhead, it's going to inject venom into your system. And if you don't get some anti-venom in a hurry, you're going to be in trouble. Big trouble. In fact, it can lead to death, right? So these 7 deadly venoms, which are venoms of the mind, if we don't get an anti-venom, which we're going to talk about also, some quick ideas to use as anti-venoms. If we don't get an anti-venom to take care of these 7 deadly venoms, guess what happens? Our dreams die. The life that we can truly live never really manifests itself. And we basically just have a mere existence. We're not really living for the time that we have here. So we want to be honest with ourselves. And now, when we go over these 7 venoms, you may have more than one. By the way, I had them all. I'm going to tell you that right now. I had them all. And that's really where they come from. Now, are there probably more than these? Yeah, but I think these would be the main ones. And I know you're like, come on, man, let's get to the venoms so we can get to the anti-venom. So the venom is actually a victim statement. It's a victim statement. It is something that we are saying to ourselves or that we are saying to other people that lets us know, dude, we've been bit. The viper got his fangs in us. Their venom has been injected into our system, and the virus is impacting our brain and our mind and our conversation, our internal dialogue with ourselves and our external dialogue with other people. So what is the first one? The first one is, and you may want to write this down, this is the first deadly venom. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. Well, when we start to say it's not my fault, we disown everything. So we take no ownership of everything. And now we kind of lose the power because we are claiming to be the effect and not the cause. We disown any role that we played, even making the decision to be in that place or be with that person or to have that thing. And we have the position of a victim. We choose to have a powerless position of being a victim. Now, one of the ways this shows up in terms of how it manifests itself when we start to own the statement, it's not my fault, and we start to have this victim mentality, is it can show up in being angry. We could be angry. We'll be angry at ourselves. We'll be angry at the world. We'll be angry at people, places, things, the past, the present, the future. We just have a whole lot of anger because it's not your fault. And now it's like, look at what's happening to me. Again, you are at the effect. And when you feel like you are at the effect, you have no sense of control because you feel as if there's nothing you can do about it because guess what? It's not your fault. Now, don't get me wrong. There are things. Look, I've had a lot of things happen to me that, quote unquote, they are not my fault. I can never take responsibility, neither can you, for the actions and the deeds of what somebody else has done. But what we can do to make sure we don't lose our own power is take responsibility that we decided to be with that type of person or be in that type of environment. Right? We don't condone, we don't excuse, and we won't even pardon per se what someone else has done. But we do not want to lose our sense of identity and our sense of power becoming the victim because of what somebody else has done. So when I say, the statement of it's not my fault is a venom, I'm not talking about that not being true. I'm talking about when you own that and then there's you go through your life feeling as if, well, because it's not your fault, there's nothing you can do about it. Now think about where that puts you. True, you did not do it. You did not want that to happen, but it's happened. Right now, we're taking the position of, oh, it's not my fault. Look at what they've done to me. Now I'm the victim. And now I'm angry because of what they've done. And I'm totally missing the opportunity to own what my role was and to take control and be more clear in what I'm going to do next. And let me add this so that when we go through these deadly venoms, you can understand something that's important. All of these deadly venoms have a certain intense emotion attached to them, right? But the issue is we are so conditioned as a society to be very emotional. And when we do a lot of emotional thinking, we tend to miss the opportunities to have strategic thinking, to have creative thinking, to do analytical thinking, to do critical thinking. So what will tend to happen in our lives is we will have this experience and we react, right? We react immediately. Something happens, boom, we react because many of us, our lives, just like a hairline trigger on our emotions. However, if we have an experience and we pause to think, not just necessarily feel, but think, we can then respond. We can respond from a place that maybe came from, some more analytical thinking or more critical thinking or something of that sort, as opposed to an immediate reaction from an emotional thinking place. So now we're just feeling and reacting as opposed to thinking and responding. So that's why it's important to understand not just the venom/victim statement, but the emotion that's attached to it, and then how that thing shows up and it manifests. Because then we can kind of take inventory and be like, okay, yeah, I'm just sitting on this trigger of my emotions. And whenever something happens, I'm responding based on how I feel, or rather I'm reacting based on how I feel. And how you feel and the reaction that comes with that feeling is most of the times not the best way to respond to the situation. So we want to condition ourselves and learn how to respond to the situation, not react to how we feel about the situation. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that feelings are wrong, but leading your life, putting your feelings in the driver's seat of your life can be disastrous. And I'm pretty sure you agree with that. It can be an absolute disaster. Okay, so venom/victim statement number 2. I am sick and tired of. I am sick and tired of what? All right. Have you heard people say that before? You said that before. You're sick and tired of something. And the emotion that can be attached to that is frustration. There's a lot of frustration. And one of the ways this will manifest is through a bunch of complaining, right? It's a bunch of complaining. And by the way, a lot of the manifestations are also coping blocks, because I found out, through life, just because somebody is complaining doesn't mean they want it to change. Their complaining is not a cry for help. It's just their coping mechanism. And the only way you really know that is when you see someone complaining about pain, about something they don't like, and you engage with them and look to do something to kind of change the situation. When they're not interested in changing, that lets you know, okay, this crying is just coping. It's not about, hey, let's go ahead and let's change this. And that's something that we have to be able to figure out when we're working with other people. But right now we're talking about ourselves. So if you are in the position where you're talking about, I'm so sick and tired of, and then you can fill in the blank, which is creating a certain amount of frustration in your life, and now you're complaining about it, let me ask you, are you complaining because you want to change it? Or are you complaining because that is an emotional coping mechanism for you? Only you can answer that question. You want to answer that question honestly. Because if you're holding on to it, we have to ask ourselves, what am I getting out of holding on to it? Because if, let's just say you have a bunch of people and you go to, oh, I'm so sick and tired of this. I'm sick and tired of that. And oh my gosh, I'm just so frustrated. Now, if people start loving on you, interesting. If you go to your peer group or people that you're close to and you're complaining and showing all this frustration about all these different things you're sick and tired of, and then they start to rub your back, massage your shoulders, figuratively speaking, metaphorically speaking, or maybe in actuality, then you go out and eat and then you go do something that's comforting, then just using this as an example, and this can apply to all the venom/victim statements, then your victim statement or this venom actually is a road to some level of comfort, but it's not freeing you. It's not liberating you. You get to this place of comfort through there, and that place of comfort is only distracting you because whatever it is that you're sick and tired of, one, hasn't changed, and two, your perspective of it hasn't changed. Therefore, you're viewing it the same way, which means you're still sick and tired of it because our perspective of it hasn't changed. I hope that makes sense to you. Okay, now, Venom/victim statement number 3 is, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time. Now, what is the emotion that's going to be attached to that? Overwhelmed. Man, they're just feeling so overwhelmed. I just don't have enough time. Which, by the way, is totally a perspective, because when we talk about the equality of time we all know people that achieve greater things don't have a 25th hour in the day. You may think they do, but they don't have a special 25th hour. It's 24, right? We have that 24. And keep this in mind when we're talking about time, and when people look at time management. In some of my videos and maybe on a previous podcast, I actually touched on it, but we don't really manage time. Right? We manage what we deposit, because the quality of every second, minute, and hour that goes by, the quality of that is dependent on the quality of what you're depositing into that. I want you to think about that, because think about it. Let's just say you have the perfect planner, right? And you have your day all structured, but you're pissed off that day, you're angry that day, or you're depressed that day. What's going to be the quality of that day and the quality of that time, despite how well you seem to have managed it, at least on paper and in your head, right? There's one thing to structure the hours, which is what like a time management system will allow you to do. It will allow you to bring structure to your hours. But the quality of every minute is totally determined on what you were depositing in terms of focus and energy. That's why I much prefer, over time management, focus and energy management. Because if you have no energy, what's your hour going to be like? What's the day going to be like? If your focus is broken and you're scattered brain and you have a butterfly mind where you're just flying from one thing to the next thing, what's going to be the quality of the time that goes by? Right. So I just wanted to kind of throw that as a side note in terms of time, since we're talking about I don't have enough time. And then guess what? That will kind of manifest itself as being stressed, totally stressed out, because you have all these different things to do and you're so overwhelmed and you just don't have enough time. Right. OK, now Venom/victim statement number 4. And after all that I have done for them or him or her. Think about it. I've done this for you and I've done that for you. After all that I've done for you, after all that I've done for them, after all I've done for him, after all I've done for her. Guess what the emotion is behind that? Unappreciated. Unappreciated. And then that will kind of start to manifest itself through self-pity. Self-pity. And don't let other people come in and start joining that self-pity party. Then that's going to amplify that for you. And if you feel good with other people joining in, then you may want to keep going to that place. All right. So you've done different things for different people. Look, I've been there. I mean, look, we know. I think I heard an acronym a long time ago on the word real. And they said that for them, it meant realize everyone ain't loyal, right? Which I thought was pretty cool. Real means realize everyone ain't loyal. And guess what? The world is filled with snake pits, and you got snakes. And remember snakes on the plane? You got snakes in the house, snakes in your life, and you got people that are vampires. They try to suck everything out of you, try to get the most, give the least. People that will use you because everybody has an agenda. And we just kind of have to realize this is a part of life. There's no total escaping from having people in your life that you will do for, and they will act like you never existed. You will do for, and they'll try to get the credit for everything that you've done. You would do for, and they will try to steal your work and make it like it's their own. You would do for, and they'll act like, hey, you never did anything for them. You'll give them something, and the old thing, you give them something, they keep it so long, they think it's theirs, so you go borrow it back. That whole deal. So the whole idea that after all you've done for him or them, so now you feel unappreciated. But here's the thing. In what spirit and mind were you doing it in the first place? Right? Were you doing it for their approval? Were you doing it for their acceptance? So yeah, that's going to sting if you're doing it to get approval from them and they disapprove of you. If you do it to get accepted by them and they reject you, yeah, that's going to have a sting to it. So when it comes down to doing stuff for people we tend to have these silent obligations in our mind where we're doing something for someone and internally we are obligating them to be a certain way back towards us. They didn't sign on to that silent obligation, but yet we're holding them to that obligation. And when they don't live up to that obligation that they don't even know that we're holding them to, now we got a problem with it. Now, don't get me wrong. I truly believe that people should be appreciative of regardless, whether they know that you want them to be appreciative or not. But look, man, people want to be people. People want to do what it is they want to do. So think about in your life, the things that you've done for people and how many times you have said, man, can you believe that after everything that I've done for him or done for her or done for them? And now you're feeling unappreciated. And then you start to have this self-pity party. And then guess what? If you feed that forward, you may be reluctant to do good to the right people, because many times we will do good things for wrong people, but we don't know they're the wrong people until a little bit later, man. That's just how it works sometimes. That's just how it works sometimes, right? I mean, I think it's pretty much fair to say that not very many people get married and say, man, I can't wait for this to end in divorce. Right. But yet there's a high divorce rate. I think if people were able to truly see, hey, dude, this ain't going to work out. Hey, man, she going to kill you. Hey, man, she going to betray you, or he going to kill you, or he going to betray you, or whatever, you wouldn't do the deal. Right. I can't explain all of that. But the only thing that I know is that there's certain things that we don't know until they happen. It's like, oh, dang, now I know. But we can't control what has happened the moment it happens again. And it all goes back to our perspective. Now we have to look at, okay, now how am I going to respond to this? We already know emotionally how we're going to react to it. Because again, many of us, we live on that trigger of our emotions. And something happens, boom, that trigger, without even thinking the trigger is pulled. Because it's a hairline trigger. It's like, bam, react emotionally. And with very intense emotions, which emotions are good and they can serve you if you are in control of them and you are directing them and you are aiming them to help propel you forward and help you to get things done that need to get done, and avoiding wasting that energy and wasting those emotions. But when the emotions are in control, they're in the driver's seat, and your logic is riding shotgun, and your critical thinking is riding shotgun, and your strategic thinking is riding shotgun, and the driver is emotional thinking, dude, that's a wreck about to happen. That is a wreck about to happen. So we want to learn how to, hey, it's not about not feeling anything, because that's like a psychopath. You don't feel anything. It's about understanding, how do I harness all these emotions and take control of these emotions instead of the emotions taking control of me. All right. Okay. Now number 5, why does this always have to happen to me? Why does this always have to happen to me? I know it. I know this always happens to me, man. This always happens to me. That's Venom/victim statement number 5. Now, the emotion kind of attached to that is one of being punished. We feel like we're being punished. This always happens to me. And we kind of go into this place where we feel like we're suffering because this is always happening to me. Oh, I'm just picked out. Oh, such is my lot in life, right? Why does this always happen to me? Almost like there's an expectation. Well, I knew it. I knew it was going to happen. Well, why did you know it was going to happen? Because it always happens to me, man. This always happens to me. Yeah, dudes and dudettes, that ain't where we want to be, man. That's not how we want to live. All right, we're going to get through these. Number 6, Venom/victim statement number 6 is, I can't help it. I can't help it, man. I just can't help it. Well, guess what? I think the emotion attached to that is pretty obvious, but it's one of helplessness, feeling helpless because I can't help it. I can't help. I can't stop eating. I can't stop watching. I can't stop because I can't help it. I can't help it, man. I can't help it. Guess what? It's helpless. And you know what you're saying? You're out of control. You're saying that you're out of control. Somebody else is driving, which is probably true, but it's one of being helpless, and how that kind of shows itself is an addiction. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not talking about something that is chemically diagnosed as wrong in a person's brain. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about things where we are in control. For example, with food. Well, look, if you understand a little bit about food, you know that all these different food companies, especially the major ones, they have labs that are set up where they use scientific equations of salt, fat, and sugar in the right amounts in foods to trigger something in your brain to make it very difficult for you to stop eating the cookies, the chips, the candy, and different foods. Literally, you can go look it up for yourself. It's not just, hey, add some sugar, add some salt, and put some fat in it. No, there are certain amount of percentages of each one, almost to, well, it is a science, that when you have this amount of sugar, this amount of salt, and this amount of fat, it truly, remember the Lay's commercials, you can't just eat one? And look, man, that wasn't just some slick slang in a commercial. It's how they're messing with your brain, right? Because of the chemical reactions in your body and how your body responds to certain things. I mean, we already know that sugar is addictive, right? But the thing is you knowing this and us knowing this, and then understanding, hey, look, now that I know this, I just can't sit here and be the effect, right? The chips and all this is the cause. And now I'm overweight, I'm unhealthy, and I have all these different things as the effect. And the reason why is, well, doc, I can't help it. I just can't help it. I'm just out of control. And then guess what? You know what? We'll give you some pills for that. And then after we give you these pills, because of the side effect of those pills, we're going to have to give you some more pills. And then because of the side effect of those pills, we're going to have to give you some more pills. And man, you popping all kinds of pills, body is being destroyed because we can't help ourselves. And y'all, look, I'm right. You know I'm right. But we have to understand what's going on here and say, hey, look, I can't control what they're putting in the food, but I can control what I do with the food. Ain't nobody tying me down and forcing this stuff down my throat, right? So I got to find out where this addiction is. And look, if it's a serious, strong addiction, there's counseling out there. There's professional programs from out there. I'm not making light of that. But a lot of people will use an addiction as an excuse to do something. Oh, I'm just addicted. Not everybody's addicted. A lot of people are just lazy, right? And it's true. It's not an addiction. It's laziness. You don't want to go to the gym. It is a lot easier to pile the plate a mile high and eat that, right? And food tastes good, and food makes you feel good, and all this other kind of stuff. So, but the thing is, it doesn't necessarily have to be food. I'm just using that as an example, but I can't help it, right? It can be you want to start the business, but you can't. You say you can't help yourself. You have to play video games all day, or you have to hit the porn sites all day, or you have to watch reality TV all day, or watch cat videos all day. I don't know, whatever it is you're hooked on that you feel as if you just can't help it. Now you're feeling helpless. Somebody help me, rescue me. No, rescue yourself. All right, one more. Number 7, which was kind of a part of number 6, but number 6 was really distinctive about being helpless, right, and feeling out of control. But this is the one that you hear a lot, and it's number 7. The 7th deadly venom victim statement is, I can't. I can't, man. I can't. And let me tell you what the emotion is attached to that one. Immobilized. You feel immobilized because you can't. And if you feel as if you can't do something, you're not going to do it. You're immobilized. What do I do? I can't do it. So you're sitting, you're stuck. I'm immobilized. What do I do? I can't. And then how that manifests itself a lot is through doubt. Because if you doubt it's going to work, then you can't. I can't do it, man. I can't. You're doubting yourself. Right? And by the way, we talk about having faith, right? Well, believing that you can and doubting that you can are both an exercise in faith. I mean, think about it. So if you say, man, I doubt that I can do it, somebody says you need to have more faith, they don't really know what they're talking about, because you do have faith. You have faith that you can't do it. It's more belief, is believing that you can. Faith is like the base. And then on top of that faith, we either put belief or doubt. You either have faith that you are not going to be able to do this, or you have faith that you can. Faith that you are not going to be able to do something is manifested as doubt, as doubting, but it is a personal perspective that you wholeheartedly see as impossible. So now you doubt it. So your faith is, I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm not going to be able to do it. Right? So you just understand that faith, look at faith as a coin. Okay. And that coin has what? Two sides. One side is belief that you can. And one side is what? Doubt that you can't. Doubt that you can't. Right? So even if you read the scriptures, like if you go into Mark and you go into Matthew, you see faith and believe and don't doubt in your heart. Why are all three of those being used at the same time? Because faith is the main thing. Belief is asserting that you can, and doubt is asserting that you can't. So it's really about having faith. And by the way, every single one of us have faith. You have faith. You have faith. You either are either abusing it or not. The abusing of your faith is having doubt, which is fascinating to me. And I kind of get it because I've been there before. But, as you start to look, it's like, why in the world would I say I want something, and then I'm going to doubt that I can have it? And it's my doubts. And then it's my doubts that are going to lead to me being immobilized. Nobody else's doubt, my doubts. Okay, so what are some anti-venoms? What can we do? What can we do? Here are some options before we wrap this up, okay? It's all about, remember, it's about perspective, because it's going to all start with perspective. So these anti-venoms are really starting with your perspective. So look at detachment versus being attached, right? If you are detached from something where it doesn't have to work. For example, a basketball player, I'm using this as an example, and I think this goes for pretty much all sports, but I'll just use this as an example. When the game is on the line and the basketball player goes to the free throw line and needs to sink these buckets to win, if he or she are highly associated and attached to that outcome, the stress levels are going to rise, because now, oh my gosh, it has to go in. Millions of people are watching. The game is on the line. The team is dependent on me. Oh my gosh, I don't want to get cut. Oh, I'm supposed to be this superstar. I'm supposed to be so great. Oh, and now, man, look, the stress levels are rising. I mean, it's going higher and higher and higher. And guess what? No matter how great of an athlete he or she may be, the fact that you are stressed will actually impede your physical performance. It's not that you're not great, but that stress getting into your system is going to shut down your ability to perform at a peak level. It's like getting stressed and you forget some of the things that are basic when it comes down to writing, right? Because that stress has a negative impact on our mind, our body, etc. So when you're highly attached to something, and you're attached to that outcome, and it must happen, it must work, it's got to do this, it's got to do that, that's not the best position to be in. But when you're detached, when the basketball player, hey, it's just another shot, man. Look, I've shot in so many, look, I shoot 85%, I shoot 90% from the free throw line. This is just another shot. I'm just going to focus on the shot, spread my fingers, follow through with my wrist, look at, shoot towards the rim, whatever their process is for making every previous shot that they made. So they're detached from the outcome. They know the outcome is important, but stressing the importance of the outcome is not going to help the immediate performance. So let me just detach from it. This is just another free throw shot. You kind of like quiet the crowd in your mind, those that are booing you. If you're in somebody else's arena, you silence everything. And you just go into your little free throw happy place where you can always land a free throw, and you're totally detached. So guess what? When you have that detachment, you don't have that stress, and you're loose. You're not tight, and you're free to perform at the peak level in that moment. But guess what? That is a personal perspective, being attached to it or being detached. Another thing is being watchful as opposed to just reacting. It kind of goes to what I was talking about earlier. We basically feel and react. We feel, boom, instant reaction, as opposed to being watchful about what's going on and then being thoughtful and responding. Now, initially, it can seem like multiple steps, but it's really just one step. Once you kind of get used to it, just being observant of what's going on, just watching. I like to watch people's behavior. I'm very observant. Trust me. Hey, anybody that know my background, like I watch people like a hawk now. I'm very observant, and I'll ask myself a bunch of questions. Hey, what does that mean? Because, look, I missed so many different things in my past, man. You'd be surprised. Boy, you'd be surprised, man. Woo! But what about being watchful? Just observing. You know how people go out and bird watch? They're observing birds. Some people like to go people watch. They observe people. Well, why not have that same situational awareness in your life and being watchful of all the different things that are going on? And through that watchfulness, because you're watching and you're just ready to basically observe, and you can kind of go to this critical thinking place or this analytical thinking place, but you're trying to, as much as possible, not immediately react from an emotional place. Okay. And what about flowing as opposed to resisting? A lot of us, we resist what's going on. We will argue with reality. How do you know you're arguing with reality? It shouldn't be this way. Yeah, but it is. When the moment we're talking about how something shouldn't be, we're arguing with reality. Hey, look, I get that it shouldn't be that way, but the fact is it is. So we don't want to be resisting the reality of the situation by arguing with it. What we want to do is understand, okay, it's happened. Now, how do I flow with it? How do I adapt? How do I adjust? And that's having a certain level of mental agility and even emotional strength and stability and agility to be able to understand that, look, if something happens that you don't like, it doesn't mean you're going to be cold emotionally. You're going to have certain feelings about it. There's going to be some things that go through your body, and that's fine. It's about that not being in the driver's seat. I'm feeling a certain way, right? For example, you can be pissed off. You can be angry. That's fine. But you don't necessarily react out of that anger. You process everything, and then you come back with your response, whether it's a verbal response, a physical response, or whatever. Anybody that's in combat sports know if you fight angry, you have a higher probability of winning. A higher probability of losing, right? That's why people, when they try to play head games, they want to try to get the other person as angry and as ticked off as possible, getting into their head. The thing is when you go into a fight, whether it's a street fight or it's a professional fight, you just want to be calm. You want to be calm. You know it's a high intense moment, but that's why you need that calmness. So your awareness is heightened, right? And you can be a lot more sensitive to what's going on, and you can be a lot more flexible, and you can flow with what's going on, and you're not going to be rigid. You're not going to be stiff. You're not going to be tense because of the anger or the stress of the moment. Now, obviously, that may take a little bit more practice, but if you've done anything in terms of combat or anything that's constantly put you in a stressful situation, I'm not talking about life stress. I'm talking about where you always put yourself in a situation where you're having to deal with stress, not because you love stress, but because you're getting your body acclimated to it and you're getting yourself used to how to deal with it to be able to perform under it. Then it becomes a lot easier in your life to deal with these certain things that come up. Now, what about, and this kind of goes along with the flow versus resistance, what about acceptance versus rejection? And that means when something, remember, think about the statements, it's not my fault, right? That's a form of rejecting what's happened. Man, this shouldn't be happening. It's not my fault, right? I'm so sick and tired of boom, 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 boom. Think about it. You're rejecting something. You don't like what's going on. If you look at all the different 7 Venom/victim statements, they're forms of rejection of what's happening. What if we just accept it? That does not mean you like it. It means you accept it. And by accepting it, there's no resistance. Remember we talked about resisting and flow, right? We just talked about flowing versus resisting what's going on. If we get from out of that place of just rejecting it, no, and we just accept, hey, look, man, this happened. Hey, this happened. This person did this situation happened, or whatever it may be. It could actually be something that you did. By accepting it, and you go to the place, okay, now what? Guess what? Now you're responding and not just emotionally reacting. You understand what I'm saying? And I think the overall, this one is basically for everything. Responsibility versus victim mentality. And that is basically saying whatever happens in my life, I have some level of responsibility for it. And look, don't get me wrong. I mean, some people can go to an extreme and say, hey, if you got carjacked, you were responsible for driving on that street. Well, guess what? It's true, but I don't want to go to that extreme. Yeah, you did drive down that street. You didn't put the guys there or whatever the situation is, right? But I don't want to go out there because, that can be a little bit too much for this conversation. But I'm just talking about in general with what's going on in our life, with our health, with our relationship, with our business, with our careers, and these different things. We have to say, for example, if you had a horrible marriage, hey, look, man, I was responsible for marrying this person. I said I do. I wasn't held, against my will. You said you do. Right? Don't we love to take responsibility for the things that go right? Something that goes good, yeah, that man, I did that. You want all the credit for it, but something goes wrong. Dude, that's not my fault, man. I didn't do it. So we should have equal ownership to everything, whether it works or it doesn't work. You're responsible. You're responsible. You just have to be, at least choose to be responsible. It's a better place to come from, because here's the thing. If you're responsible, you have the power. If you are a victim with a victim mentality, you have given up your power to something or someone. And that becomes a very hard place to move from, to change anything. So I'm responsible. And look, it's not about it's my fault, because it's not about whose fault it is. It's about, look, I'm responsible. I'm responsible for that. I'm responsible for all the different things that's going on in my life, the people I let in, the people I kick out, and all these different things. So I'm going to take some level of responsibility, because if you take some level of responsibility, you have some level of control where you can do something about it, right? Now, another one is tolerance versus judgment. Tolerance versus judgment. And basically, that's just really about a lot of different things happen with people, and we can be quick to judge them as if we're perfect and we've done no wrong. A lot of people that will judge people publicly do not want you to broadcast from their closets. They don't want you to open up the closet of their life and let you see the dirt and deeds that they have done in the dark. I know people personally that have done things publicly to other people that they know they do not want people to know what they have hidden in their closets. And I know what's in their closet. I have evidence what's in their closet. But what am I going to get out of kicking the door into their closet and beaming lights in there and letting everybody see what's dirty in their closet? Look, everybody gives an answer to the Most High. Nobody escapes judgment, the ultimate judgment. That's my belief. I don't know what your belief is, but I'm like this. The Most High gives a recompense far greater and far more eternal than what I could ever recompense unto anybody. So it's not even my business to do, right? So, and let me reel this back in. Being more tolerant of what's going on as opposed to judging everything. Because when you're judging, think about when you're angrily judging. I'm not talking about a righteous judgment, because many people don't do righteous judgment. I'm talking about when we are critical in judgment, and it's coming from that place of anger or angst or bitterness or envy or strife or something that's really dark and negative. That is not useful. It's counterproductive, and it endangers what it is you want to do next. So sometimes it's being tolerant about it and accepting of it. It doesn't mean what's happening is right, but you're not going to waste your energy on something that, one, in the scheme of the big picture, it doesn't really have that big of an implication anyway. And two, that energy is better used doing something else. And another one is embracing it as opposed to pushing from it. The different things that come our life, the different challenges, the different obstacles, many times we want to run away from those and we want to push away from those. We don't want that flame. We know all the metaphors and all the different things in life. It's pressure on a rock that creates diamonds, and it's fire that purifies gold. Yeah, everybody likes that when it's told as a motivational speech, but a lot of people don't like that when it shows up in their life. We want to push from it. If that flame is hot, man, that pressure is too much. But embracing it. I remember when I started going to the gym. Right now, I'm in the best shape of my life. I mean, the absolute best shape of my life. But guess what? Embracing the harder parts of working out, not getting started. I'm talking about when you're stacking the weights heavier. I remember the first time I started going back to the gym and I wanted to do pull-ups. I was so embarrassed to do pull-ups because I couldn't even do 2 pull-ups, like literally. And I couldn't do dips at all. And that's how bad a shape I was in. And doing air squats was like, oh my knees, my thighs, air squats. Now today I do weighted pull-ups, weighted dips, heavy squats, heavy bench. But guess what? When I say weighted dips and weighted pull-ups, I'm not talking about 10 pounds. We're talking about and for me, it's a big deal. For others, like super bodybuilders, it may not be a big deal. Like 100+ pound weighted dips, 100+ pound weighted pull-ups, 300+ squat, 300+ dips. And look, I'm over 50. Well, no, not over 50, just hitting 50. But for me, that's been like a big deal because I'm in like the best shape of my life in terms of strength and endurance and body fat. But the whole point is I had to embrace that pain and that exertion in the gym. I could have easily just pushed from it and said, nah, man, that's too much. I've had enough for today. Oh, man, that's too heavy. Oh, no, that's it. No, about 15 minutes into my workout, I'm having to embrace it. That's it. I'm having to embrace it. Most of my workout is embracing how hard my workout is. That it's easy to want to push from it and say, no, you know what, dude, no, I can't. It's too much. And maybe it is. But the only way to get stronger is to push through those last few reps. The warm-up reps ain't making me strong. The warm-up reps are just making sure I don't get injured, because the muscles are too cold. I need to get that blood pumping through my veins, right? Get everything all warmed up so you can go at it. That's not the workout. That's the warm-up. So then embrace it. So what's going on in your life that may seem to be pretty intense, may seem to be, a struggle? I have this old saying, what you call stress, challenges, and problems, life calls strength training. So it's really about embracing it, not pushing from it. And then kind of adding to that is choosing endurance as opposed to avoidance. And in the previous podcast, I talked about that being one of the things that leads to people's failure, right? Avoiding. Remember we talked about that, reluctance, avoiding, and waiting. But avoidance, well, guess what? What about endurance? Instead of avoiding it, build up the endurance. Endure it. Endurance is everything, right? Because even the scripture says it's he that endures to the end. All these people walking around talking about they saved. Now look, you call yourself a Christian. Don't get all offended, but correct me if I'm wrong. Ain't no scripture say you saved right now. It says he that endures to the end shall be saved. And unless you reach the end, you have to still work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Don't get it twisted. Stop listening to these pastors that don't even know what they're talking about. You have to endure to the end. Thus saith the scriptures to be saved. So endurance is everything. For those that are Christians that want to make it into heaven, you got to endure to the end and work out your salvation with fear and trembling. We ain't going to get preachy. We ain't going to get into all that, but trust me, we can break it down. But the whole point is, if you avoid everything and endure nothing, what are you going to accomplish? But here's the interesting thing. Do you know how you build up endurance? Endure. Think about it. How does a runner build up long distance running endurance? He or she has to run a long distance. You can't sit there and read books on the run and be like, yeah, I feel like I can do it now. Dude, you got to get out there and run. You want to endure certain things in life? The only way to build up your endurance is to, guess what? Endure. Endure. You get it? Got to endure. Another thing real quick, I'm going to wrap this up. I got a few more, but look, we're going to wrap this thing up. Another thing is, at the end of the day, looking at how you are the cause and not just the effect. Cause and effect is cause and effect is cause and effect, which means a cause creates an effect and that effect becomes a cause to another effect. So there's kind of like this chain reaction. However, what I want you to think about is everything that's in your life. I want you to consider, good or bad, how have you been the cause of it? How have you been the cause? Because the moment we do that, we start to see the role that we played, the level of responsibility that we have. And also, if I've caused these different things that I don't like to have happened, can't I cause the things that I do want to have to happen? Of course. Because remember, every day we look at our life, it's all an effect. Your weight is an effect. Your money is an effect. Your relationships are, everything is an effect. Something is causing that. And if it's in your life, you are an equation in that cause. You may not be the only element of the cause, but you do have a role in that cause because it is your life. So just ask yourself, what have I done? Forget everybody else. It's easy to blame other people. It's easy to make an excuse. It's easy to try to put everything off. And remember, that's a part of a venom. That's one of the venoms. We don't want to do that. We want to take ownership. Hey, listen, today I'm stepping up and I'm owning this. You look at something in your life that you don't like. It could be your weight. It can be your career. It could be your money. It could be your business. It could be your relationships with your husband, your wife, your siblings, your kids, your business, whatever. Whatever it is that you say you don't like, ask yourself, what have I done to be the cause of this effect? It is not about blaming yourself. It's about understanding your role and responsibility. So you can be like, look, to a certain extent, I have been a leader of this mess in my life. I am the leader of this mess. So I'm going to lead myself out of this mess. That puts you in a position of greater power in your life is what I'm telling you. So what have you done to be the cause of the good and of the bad? And maybe we'll come back and revisit this another day because there's a lot more to the 7 deadly venoms. But that's going to be a wrap for today, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate you tuning into the Success Sculpting Show. Be sure to share the show. Let us know how you love the show. And most high willing, I'll see you next time right here on the Success Sculpting Show. Thank you for listening, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Success Sculpting Show with Stephen Pierce. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll pass along our web address, successsculptingshow.com, to your friends and colleagues. Be sure to check out our archives of previous podcasts and check the schedule to join us for our next live streaming Success Sculpting Show webcast. This has been a Success Sculpting Incorporated production. Join us next time for another edition of the Success Sculpting Show with Stephen Pierce, and tell your friends.